Now, up next, this is very special because our reader now, our author who is going to be doing a reading for us, is one of us. When I say one of us, I mean one of us here at Channels TV, the very charming Millicent, lawyer, news anchor, broadcaster, journalist, and a whole lot of other things this lady is. But you definitely know her face. When you see her, you say, oh, that's Millicent, that's Millicent. Millicent has come up with a book that you absolutely have to read. And we had to pull her out to come and do a reading for us on this show. Now, let's get to meet Millicent and her new book. Enjoy this.
Hi, I'm Milliscent Nnwoka, a journalist, broadcast journalist. I like to call myself as well a development journalist. And I'm also a lawyer. I was called to the Nigerian bar in 2009. The journey of the book, Legal Angle, started when I was a youth corps member posted to the Ministry of Justice in Lafia, that's in Nasarawa State. It was an interesting experience. It was my first experience on my own in the northern part of the country. What I did was I gave legal advice on cases. I went to court when required as well. However, my further interaction with the people and the role I played birthed this book called Legal Angle. It started as a show on the law, enlightening people about their rights, a reminder of their responsibilities. The book uses popular examples of conflict, like tenancy issues, issues surrounding contracts and other issues, breaking down the processes and procedures into bite sizes, little bits, explanatory as well. Take, for example, Chapter 1. I titled Chapter 1, Landlord versus Tenant. And the very first question I asked a guest I had, who was a legal practitioner at the time, was, what kind of contract does a landlord and his tenant engage in? This was a response. Generally, the contract between a landlord and his tenant is called a tenancy agreement. By landlord, we're referring to a person who owns a building or land and leases the land, building, or part of it to another person who is called the tenant. So, that was like a clear, simple explanation of really what that entails, a tenant and what, of course, a landlord means. And my next question was, some tenants enter into oral agreements, many still do, with their landlords. Is that advisable? Well, it would depend on the parties involved, was his response. It is, however, legally advisable that all agreements be written so that they may be tendered as evidence in the instance of a breach or disagreements. And we know this is the world. There are breaches, there are disagreements every now and again. But I wanted further explanation, because if people heard this, what they should look out for in terms of when something goes wrong, when there's a conflict. And it says that if there are private individuals who understand themselves without any dispute as to the terms and conditions, then they may toe the line of oral agreement. Nevertheless, it is legally unadvisable. On the other hand, if the parties are artificial parties, for example, a company or an individual, and a natural party or both, then such an agreement must be under seal. The reason is that according to the Companies and Allied Matters Act and several other statutory provisions, like the property and surveying law, the companies must enter into a written agreement. And the necessity for that, even among private individuals, is hinged on the tendencies of the failings of the human memory, the uncertainty of human nature. For example, if you have the contract written and duly executed by the parties, it is impossible to deny that such an agreement exists. And this is essentially, when it's used as a reference for future purposes. So this is how I started the book, Legal Angle. these issues, several other chapters in the book, to really talk about how some of these very simple legal issues, how they affect the human populace. But there's also another chapter that I'd like to talk about, and that is chapter 5. Now, this is titled, getting to chapter 5 over here. This is one of my favorite chapters, National Development and Ethical Values. First, when you look up what that means, national development, just typing it on the internet, Byju's, I believe, on the internet defines it as the capacity of the country to raise the standard of living of its residents. It can be achieved by providing individuals with basic livelihood requirements, supplying them with employment, better opportunities, shelter, eradication of poverty, healthcare. As a core member and till this moment, I've always felt that Nigeria has a lot of potential, hence this chapter. And so my very first question at the time was, what is this concept of national development? And we were talking 2010 when I actually wrote this book. Economic, social, or political. National development is set to bring valuable and positive changes that improve the living standards of a populace. Some have wondered about the possibility of succeeding, especially where the Constitution, and that's the Nigeria Constitution, 1999 as amended, provides for it in a chapter that is not justifiable. Chapter 2, you must be familiar with that. But according to an article that was written by Victor E. Dike, values education is an important part of national development. He said that values education involves educating for character and for good morals. It is the teaching of respect and responsibility and other values to citizens for good character and development and for the health of the nation. However, there is also rule of law, which over the years we've become familiar with. Equality of opportunity, due process, representative governance, the importance of checks and balances, and essentially democratic decision-making, which are procedural values that define democracy, something we just celebrated June the 12th. Well, the fundamental moral values that a society should teach its citizens are respect, responsibility. Others include honesty, fairness, tolerance, prudence, self-discipline, compassion, courage, and cooperation. These will enable the people create a viable society. There are several problems which still permeate around the world, and there are also increasing moral problems in the country, some of which include corruption, dishonesty, greed, political killing, and other destructive behaviors. And essentially, my point in chapter 5 was that there is a core for the values education in society, and that we shouldn't depart from that. If we can settle that at the core of, the young, perhaps we would look forward to a better, much more rich country. The book goes on and talks about, quite a lot of important things that I think you need to know. Legal Angle is a book for everyone. I think you should, go out there, get a copy, learn more about it, buy for your friends. It's really an easy, law made easy. It's a book for everyone. Thanks, and I hope you enjoyed my reading.
Let me let you into a secret on about television. When you see people on television, they'll smile, they'll look good, look great, and all that. But the characters might be slightly different behind the cameras. But Millicent, what you see is what you get. Fantastic lady. And that's a book you really have to read. So get yourself a copy and dig in. This is where we have to end the show today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. My name is Olakunle Kasumo. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.